Hello, everyone. My camera's going to be off for a moment.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you. Chairman?
Yes, I don't see Councilman Desonay.
He's here. He just.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing, but I'm here. As usual.
That's mean you're not here.
I'm here. I'm in my office.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
Put orange. Also, drink the same.
Oh, she's in Dallas.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Today it's Tuesday, April 13, 2021, and it's what time it is? It's 12:34. You know, today we're gonna start the meeting 30 minutes before at 12:30. The meeting is called to order, Madam Secretary.
Board Member Estimate Irvin. Board Member Keys.
I'm sorry, present.
Board Member Keys.
Carol. Councilwoman Keys.
He may have her audio.
Okay.
Let her know.
Is that what you were calling me about?
No. But let her know.
Okay.
They're calling her.
Okay. Chairman Bieneme.
Here.
Board Member Galvin. Board Member Desilme.
Here.
Board Member Keys,
Or not? You're able to hear or no?
Women?
You're able to hear?
Oh,
Because they were saying your name, but you know what answer.
oh, no, I'm not hearing.
Okay.
Uh, we hear you, Carol. You just,
No problem.
Sorry.
It's okay, don't worry.
Board Member Keys,
Yeah, she was on mute.
Oh, okay.
Board Member Keys, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I wasn't on mute. I just was on no sound.
No problem. We're just taking roll.
Okay.
So Board Member Keys is present. And as of 12:35, Board Member Galvin, 12:36, excuse me, Board Member Galvin.
Aye.
Board Member Galvin is also present. Chairman, you have a quorum to proceed.
thank you very much. Please let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you very much. It seems like we have a long agenda. Let's move real quick to the consent agenda, Madam Secretary.
Rosa.
Unless a member of the CRA board wishes to remove a specific item from this portion of the agenda, tabs A through B constitute the consent agenda. These resolutions and items are self-explanatory and are not expected to require additional review or discussion. These items will be recorded as individually numbered resolutions adopted unanimously by the following motion: that the consent agenda comprised of tabs A through B be adopted.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion on the consent?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion made by Board Member Galvin to approve the consent agenda. The motion was seconded by Board Member Desilme. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Board Member Estime Irvin, I'll need a voice vote since you're not on camera, and
Aye.
thank you. Motion carries with a 5-0 vote.
Thank you very much. For the items for review and action, agenda item number 1.
Agenda item 1, resolution to approve the North Miami CRA residential rehabilitation guidelines. A resolution of the chairman and board members of the North Miami Community Redevelopment Agency approving the residential rehabilitation grant program guidelines, authorizing the executive director to implement the residential rehabilitation grant program and providing an effective date. Agenda item 1.
Thank you very much. Do you have a presentation, Madam
Yes.
President?
Yes. Yes, Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. Before you is an application. I'm sorry, I was a little bit distracted. Before you, for your consideration, is the new residential rehab program guidelines that the CRA has drafted. From 2016 until March 31st, 2021, the CRA funded the city's housing division's single-family rehab program and funded 50% of an inspector and 50% of a housing coordinator. As the agency grows, it has become more efficient and cost-effective to manage its own residential program. To that end, the following guidelines will provide for: 1, a painting program for owner-occupied homes for up to $5,000 and up to $7,500 with a 60-40 match for multiple dwellings up to 4 units. 2, a beautification program for owner-occupied homes for up to $20,000 with no match, and for renters with a 70-30 match requirement. We will have a multi-dwelling improvement of up to 4 units for up to $30,000 with a 70-30 match. Eligible uses are mainly for exterior improvements: roof, impact windows and doors, landscaping and irrigation, energy efficient air conditioning, septic to sewer, flood mitigation improvements, to name a few. For this fiscal year, we have $750,000 budgeted in that line item. Once the board approves it, it will be effective as of April 15th. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you very much. Let's open it to the public. Public hearing is open on agenda item number 1. Public hearing is open on item number 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this afternoon's virtual CRA meeting. This meeting will allow live public comment by attendees. Public hearing will take place upon announcement by the chair of the meeting, Chairman Philippe Yereme, and from that time, attendees will be able to virtually raise their hand, and this should function similarly to lining up at the podium. If you are participating by phone, please press *9 if you would like to raise your hand. When it is your turn to speak, a PIN will be sent to you. Enter that PIN to unmute yourself when you hear your name called. Attendees cannot leave their hand raised throughout the entire meeting, so if you raise your hand before an item is read, it will be removed. Do not forget to state your full name and complete address for the record. And remember that you will have up to 2 minutes to make your comment. Thank you in advance for your understanding and your feedback. Claude, are you able to let us know if you see any hands raised on this item?
Sure thing. Currently, I see no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Public hearing is now closed. Board members. Councilor Keys.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, board, I don't know what your title is, major board member. Rasha, did you ever get a count of how many septic tanks are in the CRA and what the cost was going to be to mitigate that many units?
I did email you the list that I got from Public Works this morning.
Oh,
yes, unfortunately. I'll resend it again, but I did send it this morning. The numbers are very nominal because most of the properties that need to connect are outside of the CRA here in the city south. So I don't have a definite number right now because the list is large and we're still vetting them. But so far, all the ones that need to connect to sewer are outside of the CRA.
So we don't have any in the CRA?
So far, like I said, from what I've vetted so far on the list that I got from Public Works, they're not, residential properties are not in the CRA. They're outside of the CRA.
Okay. So then the second issue is, are we making septic tank to replace septic tanks in the CRA and the flood mitigation properties? Are you said we were going to make that a priority?
Yes, ma'am. It is in the guidelines that we're saying, in addition to low income and disabled, we're making flood mitigation and environmental a priority.
Okay. I'm just posing it to our other board members. If we would like to set aside 100 or 150 and just earmark it for the septic and flood mitigation. If we have extra, we can always put it back in the pot. But we've got some real problems in the CRA area. I understand
that, but it's based on the resident. Understand that if they convert from septic to sewer, the water bill gonna be higher. That's when they have to agree on paying that. That's when it's up to them if they wanna apply for it.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure.
We don't want to put money aside just for that.
Questions are.
I just wanted to earmark it to make sure that anybody who wanted help going to, at some point it's going to be required, but any help converting, and also anybody who has flood issues, and, things like Rasha said, things for the bottom of the door, or anything to help keeping their house from flooding. If we wanted to make sure that they had that money, it didn't go to just other items that were not life safety issues. That's all. Nobody wants to do it, that's fine, as long as it's a priority.
Councilman Keys, are you done?
So how many,
Councilman Keys, are you done?
I'm done. I just threw it out there if anybody wanted to, put some money aside for these, potential, loss problems with the flooding. But also help with our flood mitigation, maybe get points with our CRS, I'm not sure.
But we only have $700,000 for the total project. And Councilman Desilmay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do support the move, Councilwoman Keys, in terms of the movement for the environment from this septic to sewer, because I do think at some point I think the county gonna require it, or the state. The area that we were trying to incorporate, that was a major issue for us because none of those houses were in compliance, and unfortunately they were not in the CRA zone. What I would say is that we should have it in the plan, but not earmark any amount. So if somebody do come up, then we could facilitate doing it for them, but not set aside an amount of money, because I was doing my briefing with Rasha. I told her I did support the idea, but not necessarily set an amount of money, because I don't think there was a lot of homes from the numbers in the CRA area that were not already converted. So that was my only thing.
Okay. I know a lot of the floods and problems happened in District 3, near that Dade County lift station, and a lot of properties were really harmed when we do have the floods or hurricanes, so.
right, so if I may?
Wait. Can you finish? You're gonna be able to speak.
Okay, I'm done.
You're done. Are you done, Councilman?
Yes, 1 second, Mr. Mayor. I do want to end and say, Rasha, I want to say I applaud you for working very diligently to finalize, along with the attorney, to bring this item forward. I know a lot of members, all of my colleagues were really working behind the scene to make sure that we came up with, when the idea came up, you wanted to do the standalone item to make sure that we did this home thing. And I thank you for including the sprinkler program, which was something 3 years ago we came up with, and I have a list of residents that wanted that, and we made sure that that was part of the guideline. I do see that a lot of the different structural things that's not part of the city guideline is incorporated in this, and some of, it mirrored the city's guideline, but also there's some flexibilities and some stuff like this initiative Councilwoman Keys is mentioning that is not part of the city guidelines. So I just want to say great job to you and Steve for making this happen, and something that I think all of us here truly support. And I know I was definitely pushing it, and I'm glad that it's coming to fruition. That's basically it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Estime Irvin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Carol Keys, for mentioning all of the need that we have in District 3. However, the need in District 3, all of those areas are not a part of the CRA. Yeah. And I personally have been speaking to Senator Pizzo about how we can get dollars to come so that we can get this conversion of septic to sewer in District 3. So, I just wanted to put that on the record. I am very concerned about that. There are a lot of the pockets that are in my district are on the ones that we just merely incorporated, like you've just mentioned, or you were trying to incorporate, Councilman Desilmay. But we have some, but they're not within the CRA. Talk about that, Mr. City Attorney. What could we do? What is the process to see if we can enlarge in our map? Our CRA map.
Well, in order to, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. In order to basically increase the size of the redevelopment area. And I will tell you that North Miami probably has one of the largest CRA redevelopment areas in the state. You have to go back and do another finding of necessity. In other words, you have to order the study to determine whether that area is slum and blighted. And then once you do that, you have to modify your redevelopment plan, which requires you to go back to the city council, you all, and the county as well. So it's a statutory process that's guided under Chapter 163. And again, I mean, it requires a study to be done first. Then you go from there.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Key was going to talk. Who was going to talk? Someone, Councilwoman Keys, you talked about the flooding situation, and you want to put money aside to address flooding?
Well, I was just going to earmark it if we don't have the need. It is priority, so I'm not pushing it. I just wanted to make sure that it was a priority. If people have flood issues, as opposed to just putting a little paint on their house, I'd rather get their flooding problems taken care of. But if it's a priority,
But the resident need to apply, right?
Oh, so they have to apply.
Okay. To get what done?
So I've spoken to Stephen Pizzillo, our building official, who's involved with the flood mitigation for the city, and Amanda Murray, the sustainability coordinator of the city. And we've come up with a list of things that, for instance, if you're a victim of flooding, there are certain things that you can do on your property to improve and to mitigate it. So there are certain things, there's certain flaps, for instance, for the front of your property, your garage, keep garage door to keep water from penetrating in your property. There's some pervious material you can use for your driveway. There's your landscape.
Swales.
Yeah, your swales, so you could absorb as much of the water before it comes into your property. And there's some other items that the building official recommended for people to do on, around their property to keep the water from coming. So that's the flood mitigation part. I've made it very, I can't say liberal, but I've made it open enough, flexible enough that the contractor who has to pull a permit would work with Amanda and Pizzillo to, make sure that those are eligible uses of the funds and their properties actually, being preserved from the flood.
I think the best thing to do is to make the public aware of the grant and the new guidelines so they can apply for those flood mitigation and those applications that's been there. No, but if we're going to put money aside just for that, and at the end of the day, we just have a few applicants, I think that's not helping those people who really in need of a roof repair or windows or other things, especially those seniors. And if there is no questions and no comments, can I have a motion to approve agenda item number 1?
So moved.
And I second it.
I'm sorry.
I have a motion made by Board Member Galvin to approve agenda item 1. The motion was seconded by Chairman Bien-Aimé. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries with a 5-0 vote.
Item number 2.
Agenda item 2. Resolution to approve residences at NOMI Infrastructure and TIF grant. A resolution of the chairman and board members of the North Miami Community Redevelopment Agency approving the funding for NM 124 LLC for a multifamily residential rehabilitation project known as Residences at NOMI, located at 950 Northeast 124th Street, North Miami, Florida 33161, in the form of an infrastructure grant not to exceed $5,880,000 and a tax increment recapture incentive of 50% of projected city ad valorem tax revenues from the time the project appears on the property tax rolls until the North Miami CRA sunsets, approximately 20 years. Authorizing the Executive Director and North Miami CRA Attorney to negotiate and finalize an agreement with NM124 LLC to provide funding for the development of the multifamily residential rehabilitation project. Authorizing the Executive Director to execute the agreement. Authorizing the Executive Director to take all action necessary to implement the terms of the agreement and providing an effective date. Agenda item 2.
Thank you very much.
As I read the memo, Claude, can you bring up the PowerPoint, please? Thank you. Before you is an infrastructure and tax increment financing grant request for your consideration by NM124 LLC. They're located at 950 Northeast 124th Street. They're requesting $5.8 million infrastructure grant and up to 50% of the city tax increment financing through the life of the CRA. The project is a 175 unit mixed income mixed use project for seniors 5 and up. They are proposing 35 studios, 41 bedrooms, and 102 bedrooms, 230 parking spaces. The total cost of the project is estimated at $44,753,319. Because the property is within the NRO, they're required to earmark 15% of their units for affordable housing, which is 27 units. The property of the 27 affordable units, the CRA or its designee will vet North Miami residents and other applicants to ensure affordable qualifications throughout the life of the CRA. The CRA would get 6 studios, 1 bedrooms, and 15 2-bedrooms. The applicant does not foresee any challenges in the project. They will abide by the following requirements within the grant's guidelines: local labor workforce, local preference, small business enterprise, community business enterprise code, conflict of interest, and living wage ordinance. There is a clawback provision that will be included in the agreement, which requires the agency to clawback or rescind and recover funding from any entity or contractor which does not comply with the agreement, and we would demand full refund. CRA is requesting the following. No more than $5.8 million can be spent on infrastructure expenditures. A detailed breakdown of expenses will need to be provided prior to execution of agreement. 50% of the city TIF through the life of the CRA. As per the infrastructure grant guidelines, applicant will be required to obtain a site plan approval within 1 year, building permit approval within 2 years. No funds can be dispersed until applicant has secured the loan for the full balance of the cost of the project. Funds will be dispersed on a reimbursement basis following submission of evidence of payment for qualified expenses. Project is estimated to take 36 months to complete. Funds will be dispersed within the stated timeframe, with the final payment released upon attaining final inspections and certificate of occupancy. Representing NM LLC is their attorney, Stephen Wernick. Mr. Wernick, we are ready for your presentation.
Thank you, Rasha. Again, my name is Steve Warnick. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, NM124 LLC. Good afternoon, Chairman, board members. If you could go to the next slide. We're very excited to be here. It's a pleasure. This project is located between 123rd Street and 124th Street, just a couple of blocks from MoCA and the city government complex. So it's right there in the heart of the CRA area. If you could go to the next slide, please. The current conditions of the site, as you can see, is a surface parking lot. This will be probably the first vertical construction project for housing in this area in many, many years. And it has the opportunity to be a catalyst for additional development in the CRA boundaries, bring back life on the street level, make the area safer, and obviously provide more housing. We can go to the next slide, please. The project, as Rasha went through the basics of it, the 175 units, 15% of the units are affordable. That's 27 of the units. This project was actually approved by you as a city council in 2019. So it already has received its site plan approval. It's still working on finalizing the building permit, but we expect that later this year. There's a retail component just under 9,000 square feet. There's a small office component. And there's actually 3 separate buildings on site that'll transition in height from north to south, so as it's going towards the residential neighborhood to the rear. There's 230 parking spaces, which is 220 on site in a garage, as well as 10 new on-street spaces. And the construction is slated to start later this year once the building permit is received. If you go to the next slide, please. Again, Rasha covered this, so we can move to the next slide. A couple of images just of the project. Again, these are the same site plan and renderings from the site plan approval. But just so you can see the amount of public open space, the pedestrian promenade component, the project hopefully becomes a link for future development in the area, and as it provides many amenities for the residents on site. And that includes a bus shelter. It includes, again, this pedestrian plaza, landscaping improvements to support the project. If you go to the next slide. Another image just from 10th Avenue looking southeast of the project. And the next slide, please. The next few slides I can go through pretty quickly because, again, Rasha has summarized this in her memo, and there's, of course, more detail in the application and letter of intent. We'll come back to any of these slides if you think we need to come back for any questions. But this just shows you the breakdown between the infrastructure grant and then the tax increment recapture, which would be over the life of the CRA. And that's 50% of the projected ad valorem taxes. Of course, the other 50% stays with the CRA, and also the base tax revenue stays with the city. Next slide, please. These are just the fees generated by the project that would come to the city of North Miami at the time of building permit. So you've got your building permit fee, the impact fees, and together that's over 1.5 million. Next slide, please. Here, just a quick summary on the current taxable value, which is very low because it's this underutilized parking lot. The taxable value after completion is estimated at 40 million. And that increment in the additional tax value is 39.3 million. The estimated share of the city's ad valorem taxes, which primarily coming back to the CRA through 2044, is estimated at 8.7 million. Next slide, please. Just a graphic showing the tax breakdown. So even though the TIF is a 50% split, you can see that the property owner really on their whole tax bill, because you've got the school board component, the county component, the TIF coming back to the developer represents about 16% of the overall tax bill. Next slide, please. And this just summarizes on the left side the investment being made by the CRA for the infrastructure grant, which is dispersed over the life of the construction, and then the net present value of the tax increment component, which is at 2.3 million. And on the right side, just a summary of the fees coming directly to the city, as well as the projected ad valorem tax revenue collected, and just highlighting the unit count, the investment being made, on-site improvements, and also creation of jobs that are associated with the project. Next slide, please. Just a little bit more detail on the projected job creation. And this would be a combination of direct jobs on site, construction jobs, also the indirect jobs generated from the activity on site. So for retail and office and so forth. And again, as Rasha mentioned, we are planning to have a job fair in coordination with the North Miami CRA. And obviously the local preference, local participation, and all the requirements that would come with the CRA agreement we're committed to. And I think you can go to one next slide. I think this is the final slide that we have. Yeah, just an image of the project. So I know you have a long meeting, so I'll stop and available for any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you very much. Let's open it to the public. Madam Secretary, public hearing is open on item number 2.
If you wish to speak on agenda item 2, please raise your hand at this time. If you're using the application on a computer, a laptop, or your phone, please just click on the raised hand icon. If you're participating by phone, please press *9 now to raise your hand.
Public hearing again is open on item number 2.
Mayor, it does not appear that we have any hands raised on this item at this time.
Thank you. Nothing sent to you?
No, we do not have any comments that were previously submitted on this item.
Thank you very much. Board member?
Motion to approve?
No, I have one quick comment, Councilwoman, before. The only comment that I have, Mr. Warnick, if you can, when you do have the community outreach or the job fair, please make sure that you have folks within the community who at least knows a thing or two about community outreach that would reach out to the community. And I know, please, well, I think you mentioned that you'll be in consultation with the CRA. Okay, so that'll be that. So that's basically it. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilwoman. I'm sorry.
And I second that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you second the motion or the comment?
Yes. The motion. Motion and comment. Is that just a comment? I second the motion.
Wanted to clarify. I have a motion made by Board Member Keys to approve agenda item 2. The motion was seconded by Chairman Bien-Aimé. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries with a 5-0 vote.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3.
Can anyone who's not speaking put themselves on mute? I hear feedback. Thank you. Agenda item 3, resolution to approve funding for Munis/Energov new ERP system. A resolution of the chair and board members of the North Miami Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing the executive director and North Miami CRA attorney to negotiate and finalize an interlocal agreement between the city of North Miami and the North Miami Community Redevelopment Agency to provide funding to the city in an amount not to exceed $423,257.40 in fiscal year 2020-21 for the Munis Enterprise Resource Planning upgrade costs. B, an amount not to exceed $436,875.60 in fiscal year 2021-22 for the Energov Enterprise Resource Planning upgrade costs. C, an amount not to exceed $95,497.20 for the Munis annual maintenance fees for each of the first 3 years, beginning in fiscal year 2022-23, and D, an amount not to exceed $59,889 for the Energov annual maintenance fees for each of the first 3 years, beginning in fiscal year 2023-24, authorizing the executive director to execute the interlocal agreement, authorizing the executive director to take all action necessary to implement the terms of the interlocal agreement, and providing an effective date. Agenda item 3.
Thank you very much. Presentation by, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Before Mr. Destrade speaks, I just wanted to again speak in favor of this item. I've discussed with you individually, and COVID-19 was the perfect example of why our system is outdated and how it was very difficult for our grantees and our community to be able to interact with the city. This item will help us modernize our system. The fact that the CRA covers 60% of the city, this is why we're making this contribution. This will allow us to be able to see code violations within the CRA, be able to quantify the progress that we make. It'll help us to interface with the county permitting so we can get permits done faster. Those are just a few of the things that upgrading the system will help us with. So I pass it on to Mr. Destrade to go into the details.
All right.
Mr. Destrade, you have a presentation also to make at the council meeting?
Yes, sir. Yes, we do.
This is just awarding the amount to the CRA, but the contract itself.
All we are doing is allow you to contribute to the system, right?
That's correct. This is specifically requesting your authority to authorize an interlocal agreement for the allocation and transfer of funds from the CRA to cover 60% of the cost. So this is really just to approve the allocation of funds from the CRA to the city to cover 60% of the cost.
Okay, at council meeting, you will do the complete presentation
We'll have a
for the
complete
$1.4 million, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If all members agree on that, can we move forward by opening it to the public, and then at council meeting, Mr. Estrade will be able to give us a bigger presentation, and because it's got to go back to us. Madam Secretary, can you open it to the public? Public hearing is open on item number 3.
If you wish to speak on agenda item 3, please raise your hand at this time. Once again, if you're participating by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. If you are participating on a laptop, desktop, or on a smartphone, you can click on the raised hand icon. Chairman Bieneme, I do not have any comments that were previously submitted on this item.
Thank you very much.
I don't see any hands raised on this item.
Thank you very much. Board members, do you have any questions, or we'll wait for council meeting? Can I have a motion to authorize the local agreement between the city? Yes, of course.
Yeah, how much is the contribution, Rasha?
It's per year. So for this year, to do the Munis, it would be $423,257.40. Next year, for the InterGov, it'll be $436,075.60. And then after that, we have 3 years of maintenance. And that is about $99,000 a year till 2025, which is 3 years of maintenance.
How many?
So it's for 5 years.
Okay, so that's a 5-year commitment from the CRA, correct?
Yeah.
So it's $1 million from you.
More than $1 million. It's about 1.3.
Okay. Mr. Estrada, how much is the commitment from the city?
The commitment from the city is approximately about hold on a minute, I'll get to the exact number. It's a little bit over $1 million.
So the total for this is like 2 point something?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'll tell you.
And this will result, well, I'll ask you more questions. I know we got them at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
If we don't have any other question.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion made by Board Member Keys to approve agenda item 3. The motion was seconded by Board Member Desome. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries with a 5-0 vote.
Thank you.
Item number 4.
Agenda item 4, presentation of Northwest 7th Avenue design guidelines.
All right, let me make the introductions. Claude, can you bring up the PowerPoint, please? Over a year ago, we had hired Semilowski Romanik Say and the FIU School of Architecture and Landscape and Architecture to help us with the design guidelines for the Northwest 7th Avenue Cultural Arts and Innovation District. Unfortunately, we had to pause a little bit because of COVID, but the students at the School of Architecture, their teachers, and Ms. Romanek have been working diligently on this. And we think we did a community meeting, a virtual community meeting, and other meetings. Councilman Board Member Disrume was there. He chaired the meeting. We had representatives from residents, property owners, and businesses within that corridor that provided a lot of feedback, very positive more than anything. One of the reasons why we're bringing it to you now is because as you can tell, we're doing the Northwest 7th Avenue Road Diet with FDOT right now. Some of the recommended improvements that the team came up with, we did check with FDOT. They're open to it, but we would have to get it all done within the current time frame to avoid further delay and further traffic issues. And that's why we're bringing it to you now. Ms. Romanek?
Yes, thank you, council or board members and council members. We're delighted to be here today with the FIU team. We've been working on this package together, which is really creating the vision for 7th Avenue, really looking at the zoning, the new zoning zoning code, and making sure that we can optimize all the potential of the district. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the FIU team to go through a few slides just to give you the graphics and the visual of a portion of the booklet that's been put together that kind of gives us the rules of the road to get us there to the ultimate and best solution, and kind of give you guys a sneak peek into what 7th Avenue can and will look like.
Great. Should we get started?
Go ahead, Roberto.
Yes.
Great. So Roberto Rivera, I'm the professor and chair of landscape architecture, environmental and urban design at FIU, and I'm joined here by Henry Coronel. Henry and Mark, you guys want to introduce yourselves quickly?
Hello, my name is Henry Rueda Coronel. I'm a professor in the School of Art, and being part of this team also with Mark and Roberto.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having us. My name is Mark Marine. I am a professor of architecture at FIU and the director of FIU by Design.
So I'll kick things off. So we worked with a group of students from the Architecture and Landscape Architecture program to develop this vision about transforming what is currently a place along Northwest 7th Avenue. It has little to no landscape, limited public space, and really minimal shade and places to stop, into an active, pedestrian-friendly, pedestrian-focused, shaded, commercially viable, inviting and successful public space. Hopefully something that creates its own identity and that can be implemented incrementally. Next slide. So given the length of the portion that we're looking at, which is from 119th to 131st Street, we developed a strategy, and what you're seeing here is the entire corridor with the highlights in red of properties that we don't anticipate changing very easily, things like the fire station, gas station, etc. Sure. But we took this corridor and divided it into districts, which you'll see in the next slide. And the purpose here of doing that is one, observing the FDOT parameters and the improvements that are currently underway. So everything that you see here is respecting that. And breaking this corridor up into 3 block segments and having points of crossing and crosswalks and a lot of public amenities at those boundaries. But this was a way to organize the corridor, and you'll see how we developed that into a series of strategies that are repeatable and incremental. Next slide. Henry, you want to take over?
Yes. So one of the challenges of the project was how to communicate the west side of this community, where it's single family homes, to this new development on 7th Avenue. So every 3 blocks, as Roberto was saying, there is the opportunity to go across 7th Avenue only on those intersections. So the plan was to develop public spaces and create sidewalks and crossings that would become activated with more with people and businesses that will create a space with identity in the city. In the drawing that is on the right-hand side, the idea is that the ground floor of these new buildings that are coming in the new zoning will have lots of porosity and breezeways and sort of corridors that communicate the whole sort of ground floor of the building. Also on that drawing, you will see the alley, which is sort of at the top of the drawing. That is this kind of continuous strip that we will show later in other drawings. And towards the I-95, the dead end moments, which we propose to transform into public spaces with programming for adults and to activate that space and not create sort of those dead end moments in the city.
And create a service corridor that connects block to block office of 7th Avenue so that it helps relieve the traffic of pickup, drop off, deliveries, ins and outs of buildings, so that the traffic that's pulling out currently onto 7th Avenue, which slows things and or makes it hard to be a pedestrian or bicycle friendly environment, that parking gets pulled to the back. And then we have a service corridor that connects block to block.
And you'll see that more clearly in the next few slides. Maybe if we could advance to the next one. So here you're seeing for the same plan, but just illustrating or highlighting different aspects. We are looking at environmental improvements, which we'll talk about stormwater and how we're handling that. Both easing this transportation vehicular on the bottom left, what Meryl was talking about. The bottom darker red horizontal line is that service corridor. You'll see that in the section and then subsequent drawings. But here we're pulling traffic away from 7th Avenue and allowing for convenient parking and access, pedestrian access, which are then showing on the upper right as well as on the lower right. So in the next image, next slide, you'll see what this would be a maximum build out. The transparent volumes that you're seeing here are overlaid on top of the existing fabric to give you a sense of what the zoning, maximum zoning would look like. And then Henry, next image, talk about the section.
Yes. Come again then. Yes, so what we have in the middle of the drawing is 7th Avenue, with the composition of up to 5 stories, C1 towards the residential neighborhood, and up to 20 stories, R2s towards the I-95. So the plan was to create kind of like a division up at 5 stories. So that would be the facade to 7th Avenue with commercial spaces. Also, the sort of the innovation district concept and the arts and entertainment on that section. Against the I-95, we will see that later in other drawings. We will have the sort of the parking structures and then the towers facing east and west. So again, having better facades. Towards the single-family homes, there is the micro retail corridor that is narrow, but it could be activated with local businesses and opportunities for the community. And the little red building is the RO zoning, which will be a home that could be transformed into an office, and it will go up to like 3 stories maximum height. Also, the plan, as Roberto was explaining, is to have green roofs, solar panels, and kind of like renewable energy on the upper levels, and collecting sort of water with some other diagrams that we will see. If we see the next slide, please.
There you go. So here you see this street section that's favoring amenities for the pedestrian. We're taking that a big block, the massing of the building, and carving into it a little bit at the base with generous heights. And this will help mitigate the feeling of a canyon along Northwest 7th. And this gives us the opportunity to have some of these stormwater strategies to collect rainwater and to have friendly spaces for people to have cafes, galleries, etc., that give the impression of a much more pedestrian-friendly, and in fact, it is a much more pedestrian-friendly environment. Next slide. Here you're seeing the that bottom level, this retail, continuous retail ground level. So going from left to right, we're respecting the transition from residential with the lower height buildings there. In the small alleyway, this we're calling the micro retail corridor. This is something that would be unlike anything really in our area, where vendors can come out, people can just walk the entire length with a few spaces for larger public, small pocket parks. And then moving to the right, the main Northwest 7th thoroughfare with the cut-ins, all that ground level is commercial. And then on the far right, that's where the service corridor that allows you to enter and park and then get out of your car and walk here. That's where you see that. Next slide. A little bit more about the pedestrian crossings. The transition between the districts, or the 3-block districts that we're describing, this is an opportunity to have a lot of shade, some of the features and urban amenities that we have talked about. And then, on the far right, it kind of creates an east-west, a very strong east-west corridor that does not exist right now. Next slide, Henry, you want to talk about those?
Yes, so in more detailed sections of what could happen towards the residential section of this area with the up to 5 stories buildings and the micro retail corridor, we're proposing that the retail spaces will have kind of more urban scale with double heights and more sort of advanced design, to put it somehow, and towards the corridor, as Roberto was saying, more for local businesses. On the roofs, we have the sort of proposal of landscaping and green roofs, also water collection systems with cisterns on the ground, like in the underground of this area to irrigate. And if you see the drawing on the right hand side, some of the opportunities of these open spaces is to create plazas and areas with canopy and shade where people can stay and congregate and mitigate the sort of the presence of the highway towards the right. If we see the next, please. So again, more of this development of the buildings, like in the heart of the 2 towers, which is the section where there is this service corridor with that red car. The idea is that above that, it could be a continuation of the street that will gradually create public spaces. Could be art galleries, museum quality, or parks, or like health. So it will be a kind of transition moment. And against the I-95, the idea is to create this kind of ecological corridor, as we call it, just to buffer the presence of the noise and the pollution from the cars and the speed and the lights. And that's where we're placing the parking garages that will serve the community. Because the idea is to have pedestrian connections between all the buildings. So we're kind of following the model of what's been done in Coral Gables and Design District, Lincoln Road Mall, and other places.
And the presence of the space from the 95, I think it's a really important opportunity, which sometimes these spaces get forgotten and they're simply the base of infrastructure. But here, to create that green corridor, to have an elevation of these buildings, to give the architects an opportunity to really express these buildings in a way that's attractive and creating an identity for that corridor. That's really the purpose of this this right edge of the drawing you're seeing. Next slide. Next section, really. So here, next image, it just outlines a framework for how we're proposing that we're collecting some of the water and creating moments that are consistent across this long corridor, and they become urban points of identifying what this corridor is about. And there's some examples in the next slide, which take the idea that you can, if we can go to the next slide, you can use both or combine both this functional role of collecting water and looking at some examples from around the globe where these are fulfilling both a role as a infrastructure function role, but also using them in a way that's expressive and that combines public art, which nowhere in the corridor right now is there anything like that. So it's an opportunity for this to happen and again, become an identifying characteristic of the corridor. Next slide, Henry, you can.
Yep. One before this, I guess, well, we developed this system of sort of urban furniture that we did as a kit of parts to have something flexible that started with a simple module of a bench that would be transformed into a bus stop, into planters, into water containers, and flipped into vertical elements to create some kind of iconic elements in the sort of the long perspective of the 7th Avenue corridor, and somehow identify a kind of entrance to this section of the city, which today is very generic and it doesn't have like real character. So the idea is to incorporate lights and plants and water and trees and canopy to
throughout the corridor. Yeah, throughout the corridor.
Exactly, to populate all these public spaces. And the sort of the concept of having this modular system is that where there is more space, we can congregate more of these items, or when there is less, we can just provide shelter. And if you see the last slide, the next, which is the last. So this will be on the intersection of 119th and 7th Avenue, where that street mode is. And we just tested in plan, if you see it on the left and in view towards the right, just placing 3 of those vertical elements or towers, identifying the city with these letters that says North Miami on water, and placing or replacing the existing bus stop that is just a bench, and it's not great to just have one of these structures with shading. And also these elements could provide a space for public art, for signage, for information boards. And then towards 7th Avenue, which is the sort of the longest element, we're placing that where there is an existing flower shop that's been there forever. So to sort of incorporate what's existing into this kind of language throughout the city. And I believe
so. To wrap up, so to wrap up, so I think our goal here is to build on one, the FDOT improvements that are currently underway, complement them, take advantage of that, have an incremental strategy that's modular and can be put in place according to budget and just the whole process of approval, and ultimately to build an active and pedestrian-friendly, shaded, commercially viable public space, something that's quite different than what's there now, but at the same time do it in a way that has its own sort of destination feel and identity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shane. So, Chairman and board members, the presentation was to show you the work that the team did and the feedback. We would like your feedback. After that, they will formalize the recommendations that will go to the city's planning and zoning department to incorporate as part of the design guidelines for as properties start changing hands. They will already be in the system that, for instance, if you're going to start building a project, you need to provide a little bit more sidewalk space over the years so we can now have better pedestrian square footage. What the CRA will be doing, of course, is we're going to be focusing on the crosswalks every 3 blocks because FDOT is okay with it. So I needed to make sure that I got your feedback. So then we will come back to you with the pedestrian crosswalks after we've worked on a design and scope with FDOT so we can implement it. So if you have any questions, we are available.
Thank you very much. Question from board members, Councilman Galvin.
Thank you. Ms. Como, what does this do with if anything, what does this do with the Chinatown project that we worked so long on? Are we putting that to rest now, or are we?
This is part of it. So before the zoning, when we did the Chinatown designation, then we did the zoning change where we increased it to 200 feet on the east side of Northwest 7th Avenue by I-95. and we increased it to 55 feet, 5 stories west of 7th Avenue by the residential area. But we did not come up with the proper design guidelines for when developers come in, so they know what it is that we'd like them to build. One of the things that we took into account is that 7th Avenue has no, sidewalks. So any improvements that we do, we need them to be able to allow us to give us at least 5 feet of their property, the incentives that they're going to be asking the CRA and the city so they can build. So we're going to incorporate that as part of the city's zoning, planning and zoning code for that corridor. So over the years, you can start seeing an improvement as properties change hands. So it is still part of the Chinatown design gap.
So you are still pursuing Asian or Chinese investment in the area? You still are planning facades that have an Asian flair to them?
It's international now, board member. So that's why we called it the Cultural Arts and Innovation District. That's why the students came up with a more international feel to allow for different kind of design, except we've restricted it to make sure that we can get the public space that we need to improve that area. So it still has the water features. It still has a lot of the public space and the greenery that you would see in Asia, but they made it more international.
Can I answer that question?
Yeah,
go ahead, Councilman. Yes, I think, Rasha, the question that Councilman Galvin was asking was in terms of the concept from the Chinatown. And what we did, Councilman Galvin, to be quite frank, the prior administration, if we haven't noticed, was not quite frank, was not quite nice with what was going on internationally. And so our partners in China and the concept that we were working with did advise us that it might be beneficial to us as a city, as well as the concept that was working on, if we would change part of the design in terms of what was going on with the previous, I don't want to mention any names, but with the previous administration. So as a result of that, I did speak to Rasha and met with the residents. So we came up with the concept. Let's keep the concept as we were coming up with the guidelines to do a more international flavor as we are changing the guideline for 7th Avenue, as we're coming up with the guideline for 7th Avenue, and incorporate everything, which I would, after you're done, Councilman Galvin, I will address some of my comments. So that's basically why we basically changed the marketing of the name, but the concept is still there, but the name, the Chinatown name. So we now got to find a catchy name to kind of, I guess, draw the folks to the corridor. So the concept of the corridor is still there, but the name is basically not so much there. So we got to find a catchy name to kind of go with the concept of what the Macalis design that the architect and everyone kind of come up with.
So, Councilman, if I can clarify, we're moving forward with some of the nice things that we liked from the original Chinatown concept, yes, but we're no longer going to call it Chinatown. And we're no longer going to give everything an Asian motif.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you. That was the only question I had.
We call it an international destination.
International. We try to work with the marketing team to come up with something.
Thank you.
Something catchy.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Estime Irvin.
Yes, so I just have a question, Councilman Dezume. Since it's no longer Chinatown, would we have to, was this because this was before my time, did we have a resolution or ordinance? Would we have to, what are we doing about that? Because wasn't there a resolution to call it Chinatown?
Yes, and that's something that we will be addressing at our, with the city, with our city attorney, in terms of once we, work with the marketing to come up with a concept, because we trying to work with our marketing. I think Rasha, we're supposed to schedule something with the marketing team. So we got to find something that's going to be attractable, because that was the concept with the whole thing with the Chinatown. The concept, it worked. It worked because the research said it worked. We knew that, we built it, they will come. So we basically have to come up with something now that we know that we're going to build something nice in terms of like how we're going to get the folks from South Beach to this amazing thing that that the residents now are just saying, when is this thing going to be built, et cetera, et cetera.
Are we done? No more questions from the dais? Let's open it. No, we're not putting on anything. That's when there's no, we're not going to open it to the public. Now, Councilman Desilme.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do want to make it very brief. I want to thank Mayor Romanek. Ms. Romanek, thank you so much for the past, it seems like 10 years. You have done an amazing job working with us, with Rasha and the entire team, and your patience. And I don't know, well, I don't have any hair to pull out, but you certainly, did take the time, the patient with me, and I didn't know anything about, architect, and you took my suggestion as a regular, average person in the residence, what I heard from them trying to, make the corridor into a vision, and even at the mix of us, from the Chinatown concept into what it is. I am very proud. The FIU team, Henry, Robert, Mark, and the entire students. I know we had a session when the entire students, your entire team was there. Guys, I cannot thank you guys enough. The residents are thrilled. The only concern that they are having, which they're about to beat me up, is when is this all going to come together, or how is this all to come together? This is a guideline, and I would encourage my colleague, whatever that we need to do to pass the concept, this conceptual concept, so that we could see a new vision. We fought very hard with FDOT to make sure, we had some palm trees in the middle, and that's my biggest thing, Ms. Romanek. And I know you guys kind of fought with me to make sure we get some native trees, Carol, on the side, and they won that, the native trees and all these other trees. And so you guys really did an amazing job, and we truly, truly appreciate it. I think it's going to be a great thing. And throughout my tenures here, until I'm done here, I'm going to do my darndest to make sure that we do have a corridor that folks going to be very proud of. From the time that they get off I-95 from 125th, 119th, or 135th, they will see something, even if it's the conception from the different district is very innovative, from the crossroad, the pedestrian crossroads that you have, the ends, the different district, and then we just talk about the deadways, that we could change that into different, maybe somewhere in Shanghai or different countries. You could have different, different communities around North Miami, somewhere in South America, somewhere in the Caribbean. We talked about those concepts at those different crossways that really could bring in the community together. And you guys really did with the rooftop and all those different concepts, and really bring water. Because when we first started this, the residents talked about the water being a central part in what you guys have done with the water from around the world and the concept into this design. I am very pleased, and I want to say thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the group who put this together. If there's no more questions, there's no decision to be made, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Now do we have CRA report? Attorney?
I have no report today, sir. Thank you.
Executive Director report?
Just to inform the board that our annual report for fiscal year 1920 has been published. As you know, by state statutes, we're required to have it done by March 31st. It has been done. It's been advertised. We have hard copies at the city clerk's office. It is posted on our website, and Miami-Dade County has already received it for their files with our audited financial statement. And we do have a link attached to your packet as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments before?
Yes, I believe we do have public comment. So if you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand at this time. If you are calling in or dialing in by phone, please press *9. If you are using the application, just click on the raised hand icon. The first hand that I have is Geo Darter. Mr. Darter, I'm going to unmute you now. Please state your name and address for the record. And remember that you have up to 2 minutes to make your comment. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, yes, my name is Gio Darter. I am the founder of Copper Ridge Foundation. And just quickly, I thought I lost my chance to raise my hand, so thank you for calling on me. I'm very excited to hear about this, the fact that FIU has come on board. My question actually is how did that come about? Whose idea was it to welcome them in to be part of this planning? Was this something that they hired, or is just a joint venture through school as a academic connection and not a financial one? Just curious. And if so, either way, I welcome it. I think that the plans were beautifully executed. I think that they create a vision and also a roadmap on how something or a project should then be followed. With that said, there are other pockets in North Miami, like Griffin, which I believe could use the same type of influence with this type of case study. And I've always been an advocate of bringing academic resources into the picture. With this said, I welcome this for the North Miami Griffin area, and hopefully they'll continue with pockets so it's a harmonious kind of connection throughout the city instead of just one type of section and then the other. Again, I'm very excited about this. I'm glad today was a full packed CRA meeting. Congratulations, Rasha, on all your work. But I am curious, how did this union come about? And I welcome it further along. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Public comments.
All right, I do have one comment that was submitted previously. It was actually submitted on April 5th at the CRA Advisory Board meeting. It was not, in fact, read on the record at that time, and so we are going to be reading it at this time. Nicholas and Deborah Davies, 1165 Northeast 127th Street. We are writing to request your further help on the 1155 NOMI project, which has been approved to receive generous CRA funding from the city. We previously submitted a public comment from 18 neighboring homeowners, and the developers responded by relocating the vehicle entrances off Northeast 127th Street as we requested, and increasing the setback to the 8-story apartment building from Northeast 127th Street to over 60 feet. However, when we met with Mr. Semla on March 22nd, he told us frankly that he and his partners have no intention of providing their tenants with a 17-van pool as described in their plans, and that is simply part of a strategy to claim a 15% reduction in parking spaces. If the developers really buy 17 minivans and hire drivers to drive them, that will be a great service for their tenants, and they might possibly need less parking for private cars. On the other hand, if they don't really do that, a reduction in parking spaces will lead to precisely the parking problems that we fear in our neighborhood and that we addressed in our previous comment. After our meeting with Mr. Semla, we immediately wrote to the planning division to ask what the developers have submitted to demonstrate the 25% trip reduction required by section 5-702-3 to qualify for a 15% reduction in parking spaces. The planning division confirmed that, quote, the parking reduction strategies proposed are a condition of approval of the reduced parking and must be implemented, end quote, and forwarded our question to the zoning and parking reviewers for the development. 2 weeks later, we have received no reply to our question. Can the CRA Advisory Board please follow up with the zoning and parking reviewers for this development and make sure that they do not grant the developers a parking reduction based on a fictitious, non-existent van pool? Thank you for all your help.
Thank you very much. No more public comment? Yeah. Yes,
Madam City Clerk, what was the date of that letter again? When was it sent?
April 5th.
April 5th?
Yes.
And was that prior to, does anybody know, wasn't that prior to the town hall workshop that they had on site?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so maybe they've got answers. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Any more comments, Madam Secretary?
I don't have any other previously submitted comments, nor do I see any other hands raised on this item.
Thank you very much. If there is no question, no comments, anything, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Excuse me, I just want to publicly,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
yeah, I would just like to publicly thank Rasha, the CRA, for the Women's Network that was done a couple weeks ago. So just want to thank you for that. And then all of the panelists that participated, and all of the women business owners that attended the program. So thank you.
Madam Secretary,
I have a motion made by Board Member Galvin to adjourn. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Seconded by Board Member Desilme. All in favor?
Aye.
Board Member Estime Irvin, are you still on the meeting?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We just wanted to make sure so I could properly record the vote. Motion carries with a 5-0 vote. The time is now 1:51.
thank you very much. We will be back at 2 for our regular council meeting. Thank you. See you later.
Thank you.